Jimmy Butler has received a suspension for 2 additional games from the Heat due to several cases of what the organization deemed behavior harmful to the team. At every trade deadline, teams generally aim for 3 key objectives. The first is straightforward. If a team is genuinely in contention for the title, they maintain the status quo and take no action. Likewise, if a team is young and in a rebuilding phase, they also remain steady and embrace the journey because there's no urgency for changes. The second objective is for playoff teams that aim to contend but require a few roster enhancements. They will seek a role player who may not have a flashy name but fits their needs perfectly. A prime example is PJ Tucker, who was traded to the Bucks at the 2021 deadline and proved vital in their championship run by adding toughness and defense. Here's Tucker from the corner, nailing the three-pointer, which is his prime area. The third goal pertains to teams that barely qualify for the playoffs' lower seeds or aging squads that should truly consider a rebuild, as they have little chance of truly competing in the postseason. In this video, we'll examine the particular scenario of teams possessing stars who realistically should not be traded, as it's evident they aren't the solution their teams require. Yet, for some odd reason, these teams remain overly hopeful about competing when, in fact, they should initiate a rebuild to alleviate fans from enduring mediocrity year after year, like with Zach LaVine. When I create a video discussing stars in need of a change of scenery, I always think of Zach LaVine being on that list. In the past, he has faced his share of challenges with injuries that kept him off the court, making it seem like his career was on the decline. However, this time around, the stakes are high if the Bulls fail to trade him. It could be their last opportunity. LaVine is experiencing arguably the best season of his career regarding shooting. Here comes LaVine for another 30 points in a 63-game stretch, as he's making 7 three-pointers a game at an astonishing 45% success rate. While LaVine has long been a dangerous three-point shooter, this performance is extraordinary, especially given the defensive pressure he encounters without DeRozan around. It's clear that LaVine has reached a new level that many didn't expect from him. Simultaneously, his trade value has never been higher. If the Bulls had traded him at this time last year, they would have received little in return. Now, with his value soaring and the Bulls stuck just outside the playoffs in the 9th or 10th seed for another year, there's no better moment to make the move. Moreover, aside from LaVine, looking at the other assets the Bulls possess is optimistic at best. Lonzo Ball's contract is nearing its end, and he had virtually no impact during his time here. Kobe White is on a favorable contract, but it remains to be seen how effective he can be. If he wants to progress any further, Patrick Williams is tied to a terrible contract compared to his output, making him nearly impossible to trade. Vu experienced a resurgence this year, but very few teams can accommodate him on their rosters. LaVine remains the only significant trade asset, a player sought after by multiple playoff contenders, and he could fit seamlessly into any of those teams because he doesn't need to dominate the ball. He's adept at taking on the Klay Thompson role, utilizing screens for catch-and-shoot opportunities. The Bulls should have considered trading him when he was an all-star, but now that his value is at a peak, they could receive considerable assets in return, potentially a deal that would jumpstart their rebuilding process. While the team holds most of their future first-round picks, they lack an overwhelming number from other franchises since they haven't made many trades. By trading LaVine, given his current performance, he would certainly bring in several first-round picks in the open market. There are rumors that he and Vu are among the hottest prospects available in trades, with the Bulls garnering plenty of interest and getting closer to a rebuild. This could be the year both are traded. It certainly should be. If they hold on to LaVine yet another season and follow their usual trend of losing in the play-ins, it's a significant risk since his value could fluctuate greatly in a year, especially considering his injury history. Julius Randle, yes, my favorite former New York Knick. Well, not exactly. Having watched Randle frequently during his time with the Knicks, I've quietly kept a closer eye on the Timberwolves than I probably should have. My 2 main observations are that Randle is essentially the same player he was in New York, and he really doesn't mesh well with the starting lineup. He'd actually perform better off the bench, although his ego would likely prevent that. In run-Rand attack mode against James, he flips it up. When comparing Cat and Randle without checking the stats, the most striking contrast is how fast Cat makes decisions upon receiving a pass. It's immediate. He either passes again, quickly moves, or shoots, which is fine since he's the best shooting big in the league. He doesn't waste time thinking he knows precisely what to do. Meanwhile, Randle appears to have countless thoughts swirling in his head once he receives the ball. First, he checks for potential pass options, then considers his own moves, attempts to execute them, and might switch to a different action, all within about 10 seconds. He takes too long to settle on a decision, resulting in tougher shot quality than Cat's. Another area where Cat excels is rebounding, which tipped the scales heavily in his favor. His rebounding has been overshadowed by being on the court with Gore, but on the Knicks, he's ranked third in the league for box-outs per game and leads in rebounding percentage, grabbing a staggering 35% of all available defensive rebounds while on the floor. Randall, on the other hand, is below average in both categories, and this has become more apparent to Wolves fans who took Cat's rebounding for granted, not to mention the shooting differences, which are significant. Randall can't hit the three-pointer on an open look, and as the primary candidate on the Wolves trade block, they need to part ways with him to return to the Western Conference Finals and regain their contender status. Ironically, Randall was never part of their long-term strategy. The Wolves made the trade to stop paying Cat, effectively trading him for Randall's contract, which runs out in summer 2025 unless he opts in. This situation actually boosts his contract's value on the trade market because of its impending expiration. The team acquiring him won't retain him for long. For the Wolves, this is a chance to revamp their roster and maybe even reunite with disgruntled players available in trades. Imagine if Brandon Ingram returned to Minnesota. In a past video about the Pelicans, I discussed his arrival in New Orleans during the famous Anthony Davis trade. Be sure to check that out on my channel if you haven't. Despite his rapid ascent to fame, injuries have plagued his career. If Zion weren't around, Ingram's injuries would garner more attention. He has missed an unbelievable number of games over the last 4 seasons and has also declined several extension offers from the Pelicans. According to Shams, he said, considering the past couple of off-seasons, Brandon Ingram declined a $50 million per year extension in 2023 and turned down an approximately $40 million offer this past offseason. I anticipated a strong market for him before the trade deadline due to the Pelicans' inability to finalize a deal with Ingram. Rejecting $50 million annually for a player of his talent is absurd. He isn't even worth that much. Perhaps Ingram might want to move on, indicating that the Pelicans should trade him immediately. Ingram's current contract concludes in the summer of 2025, and while he's been part of trade speculation for years, this is the last opportunity the Pelicans have to trade him. Unfortunately, Ingram is injured once more. He recently sat out for 2 months with an ankle sprain. How does that even happen? There could be underlying issues that aren't publicly known, which the Pelicans might be concealing, as it could significantly impact Ingram's remaining trade value. On the positive side, there is potential in securing a favorable deal for him. At 27, Ingram is theoretically in the prime of his career. When he's on the court, he excels, not at a superstar level, but he is solid all around, a caliber small forward capable of scoring in various ways. Among all players on this list, Ingram has the highest potential for improvement, whereas everyone else is over 30. As for Bradley Beal, you've likely heard chatter about him. The no-trade clause in Beal's contract complicates any deal since he decides where he wants to go. Currently, as I create this video, the Bucks lead the race to trade for Bradley Beal. Several teams have shown interest in the former All-NBA shooting guard, who earns over $50 million annually while carrying a heavy load. However, the Bucks have a valid reason to pursue him, likely being the only contender that could benefit from a Beal trade for 3 significant reasons. It may sound absurd, but hear me out. First, Chris Middleton, their longtime shooting guard, has been on a decline for several years. His ongoing ankle issues have caused him to miss many games, and he has noticeably slowed down. Once celebrated as one of the league's fiercest defenders, his defense has drastically diminished due to his severely compromised ankles, making it difficult for him to keep pace with even average players at this point in their careers. Beal is younger, and despite his own ankle concerns, he still moves far better than Middleton. In addition to playing comparable roles, their shooting statistics and shot locations are quite alike, suggesting that if a trade occurred between these two, he could easily fulfill Middleton's position. Furthermore, the Bucks, unlike many other title contenders, have several inactive contracts on their roster, meaning players who are receiving wages without contributing much, like Pat Connaughton, who earns $9 million annually but shows minimal production. The Bucks are more than ready to trade multiple players who have no effect on the team to balance the salaries needed for Beal. Now, it's common knowledge that Beal is grossly overpaid at $50 million a year, but Middleton, at $31 million annually, is also overvalued and has been even less present than Beal. With a player option, Middleton's deal could be expiring soon and might not be renewed. Although acquiring Beal doesn't represent a significant improvement, it still provides a modest enhancement. Lastly, they urgently need to make a change. Since their championship win, the Bucks have faced a nightmare scenario filled with numerous injuries, misfortune, and failures to act before it's too late. Perhaps they feel an urgency to create a major impact and revitalize the team's appearance, especially with both teams bringing back returning players. For the Suns, the moment they brought in Beal, we all anticipated this outcome, with him clearly falling short of expectations and eventually making the call on his next destination. However, if a trade for him happens, they will effectively achieve their goal, lifting a great weight off their shoulders with a strong season start that later resulted in a significant decline due to Kevin Durant's absence. They also require a means to refresh their team, and eliminating this enormous burden is an excellent beginning. Jimmy Butler, the standout of the season, has faced numerous issues since his conflict with Pat Riley erupted, including suspensions, missed flights, and missed practices, showing a complete disregard for his teammates, who seem ready to move forward now. Is it just a coincidence that Butler has left every team amidst drama, or does he intentionally seek out that turmoil because that's his nature? We'll allow others to speculate as if they possess all the information, but eventually the full truth will emerge. Around mid-December, he asked for a trade, but when the Heat told him no, Riley made it clear he wouldn't be intimidated or manipulated. In response, Butler intensified his trade demands, skipping practices, missing flights, and isolating his teammates, compelling the Heat to consider trading him, or at least exploring options. Additionally, after returning from a 7-game suspension, Butler seemed to stop caring altogether. He rarely shoots now, and his playing time has significantly reduced. And he's entirely inactive on offense. The Miami Heat have the rare opportunity to witness the utter lack of effort from the star who contributed so much to their franchise, and once again, Butler will leave another team by destroying every possible connection. It's one thing to have issues with management. It's different when even your own teammates no longer support you. The same comrades you fought alongside year after year during the playoffs are now also tired of your behavior. Hey, at least the Hawks discovered that Tyler Hero could assume the role as the leader of the franchise. Butler is a ticking time bomb that must be dealt with before he brings the Heat down with him, and those were 5 NBA stars who need to be traded, or else the remainder of the season for their respective teams will be in chaos. Let me know your opinions in the comments. Do you believe any of these players shouldn't be traded, and why do you think that anyway? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.